Welcome to Sprinkle with Hope podcast, your host, Shane, and we have had some amazing guests. We've had the opportunity to talk with a lot of great people. This will be our first time, and hopefully not our last, that we get to talk to an Olympian and a medalist. And we are so excited that Noelle Pikus Pace has joined us. Noelle, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me on, Jason and Shane. This is awesome.
We have waited for this moment for a long time, so we're very, very pleased. Like I'd mentioned, Noelle is an Olympian. Noelle, why don't you just give us a little bit of background about how you got into skeleton and what made you decide to do those things?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up just loving sports. My mom was determined to have a ballerina in the family, and that didn't go so well. I just remember, so I actually grew up dancing. Like I started dancing, I was about 3 years old, and I started dancing until I was, I think I was about 12 when I actually stopped dancing. And I loved jazz, I loved hip hop, I loved gymnastics, but I really, really hated, like with a passion, ballet. And in this dance company that I was in, we practiced like 4 to 5 days a week. And in order to do any of the other skills, my teacher, the owner of this company, of this dance company, was firmly believed that you had to have ballet in order to do any of the others. So it was like the basics. It was like how you became the best dancer you could be. So I loved to dance. We'd travel and do all these things, but I actually didn't even start doing any kind of sports until I was in 5th grade, which nowadays is like, you didn't start playing sports till you're fit. Oh my goodness. Like, how did that, like parents think that you have to start when you're like 2 years old. And I don't know. It's interesting. So I started playing softball when I was in 5th grade. And then I found out I could do track and field in 7th grade. And then 9th grade came, and I happened to have a friend that had grown up playing basketball. And she was like, hey, there's basketball tryouts tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. for our junior high. I went to Orem Junior High, and it was, 5 a.m. And I was like, well, I've never, I've touched a basketball. Like my parents, we'd go to the rec center, the Orem rec center every once in a while and go play basketball or something for a family night. But I had never played a game. And I showed up at basketball tryouts, and I made the team. I mean, I'm tall, like I'm 5'10". So I think I think it was more my height. They're like, oh wow, like we'll just stick her in the middle, put her hands up. 5'10" is a little 9th grader. It's just like, I could just be a post. So I made the team, and then I was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. So then I continued to play sports, softball and things like that throughout high school. I was always active, always looking for, and I would play like pickup games of like, 2-touch football with the boys out at I went to Bonneville Elementary. It's an elementary school in Orem, and we'd go out there on the field every so often. And I'm the youngest in my family, so I'd like tag along with my older siblings, and the next one closest to me is a brother. And so he was like, oh, I'm going to go play football with my friends. And I'd be like, well, I'm coming, So I just was always up to just get in there and get in a game, whatever it was. And, so to answer your question, that was a little long roundabout answer, but I started doing bobsledding my junior year of high school because I with track and field, I knew I wanted a track and field scholarship. My parents, you're like, you knew what a scholarship was? My parents like really instilled the drive for each of us kids to get an education above all else, like get your education, And so it was never an option that school would be done at 12th grade. Like it wasn't even an option. It was like, okay, so are you going to go for 4, 6, 8, 12, 15 years? How many years are you going past high school? That's the question. And, so knowing I wanted to go on for college, and my mom was big into like looking for scholarships and things, I realized that I could get one for playing sports. And I thought, man, that would be fun. Like I could actually compete and do something I love and pay for school. So my junior year, I was working really hard to earn a track and field scholarship. My junior and senior year is when I really, really pushed for it. And that was when my track and field coach happened. It was just right time, right place, happened to be helping out with the 2002 development team for bobsledding. So he was going up to Park City, like driving an hour and helping out with this bobsled program. And so he asked me one day he said, hey, we're looking for track and field athletes specifically to come up and try bobsledding. Do you want to go up and try it? And I was like, I don't know what that is, but it sounds fun, like, sure, yeah, I'm always up for any kind of sport. So I did bobsledding my junior year, and then my senior year, I was introduced to skeleton, and honestly, I never looked back. So it was the start of a 15 to 16 year career in skeleton, which was amazing.
That is amazing.
That's awesome.
I love your story. It really is so inspiring. Just some of the things that you faced, and I know in your story, one of the things that has really stuck out to me was in 2016 when you had an accident. Would you mind kind of sharing that story and kind of what happened and then what led to really success, right?
Yeah. So it was just before the 2006 games, I think is the one you're referring to, when I was injured. Yeah. So I was ranked. So I went to the top of the rankings really quickly. It's not normal to do it this way, but within 3 years, I was ranked first in the world in skeleton, and people try for a decade or more to try and get up into the top 3 or top 6, and it doesn't always happen even at that. So I was very blessed and very fortunate to just kind of have a knack for it, to kind of I'm a very analytical athlete. Like, I love, you can see just, I mean, I think maybe you can hear from my voice that I like to smile. So I'm like more on the happy side. Like, I don't like to be like super serious when I'm competing, but it maybe is a little deceiving to think I don't focus on the basics, but I do. I'm so analytical when it comes to sports, to try and see who is the best and try to analyze their form and their technique and pick it apart and then just implement it into my own skills. And so I kind of figured out how to do that at a young age. And so I jumped to the top of the standings within 3 years. I was ranked first in the world. And this was right before the 2006 Winter Olympic Games in Torino, Italy. And I was so excited. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be an Olympic athlete. This is amazing. I'm not going to just go to the Olympics, but I'm first in the world. So people are expecting me to be on that podium. And at our Olympic trials, I just remember going down for a training run. It was a practice run. We had just finished our first set of trials. So we had 4 competitions, and it's a race of consistency. You have to compete in 4 different races and you get points. So the first place would get 100 points, second place gets 90 points, and so forth. And so you want to be as good as you can each of these 4 races to make that World Cup USA team. And I had already finished 2 of the races and just blown away the competition. It was so fun. It was so awesome. I was just ready to go. I had this fire underneath me going into these 2006 games, ready to just take on the world. And it was my first training run of this 3rd competition on a different track. And after I finished going down the track, in and out of every corner, I should explain. So skeleton, for those that might not know, is a crazy winter. You're like, what is she talking about? Is she a doctor? Does she do anatomy? So the sport I competed in is called skeleton, and it's head first. You go down this mile-long icy track, 90 miles an hour, with your chin less than an inch off of the ice, and you steer opposite shoulder, opposite knee, and you torque this 65-pound sled every inch of the way down this mile-long track. And we get down usually in about 50 seconds. So you can see how fast that is, being a mile-long track, and you start at speed zero. So it's a lot of fun. That's what skeleton is. And after I'd taken a training run down on my skeleton sled, I was waiting for a truck to come back up to the top to take me back up to the top of this track so that I could go down again. And as I was sitting there waiting, one by one, my teammates came down the track. Courtney came down, and Leanne and Katie and Tristan, and they'd all come down, and we're sitting here talking, just how did your run go? What can you do better? What are you going to try and do better next time? Or man, yeah, I hit there too. That hurt really bad, And as we're sitting there waiting, a 4-man bobsled was set down the track, and we didn't know it. So this 4-man bobsled weighed 1,600 pounds.
Wow.
And they were coming 60 to 70 miles an hour towards this, past the finish line. They crossed the finish line, and it was the brakeman's, it was just like, it was seriously like the Titanic. Like one thing changed and it would have changed everything. But the guy in the back of this bobsled, of this kind of little car in this icy, track, he had never been in a bobsled before. And so he actually never knew he was supposed to pull the brakes.
Oh, goodness.
It was crazy. And the bobsledders had their training session earlier that morning. So they were supposed to have finished. All the bobsleds had already been down the track, but this specific team, their flight was delayed. And so they came in late. And so they said, well, we want to get on the ice. And one of the coaches just said, yeah, just jump in a sled, just get down. So there were just a lot of errors along the way. And then the speakers were turned away from us, so we couldn't hear any announcements and things like that. So anyway, this bobsled, the 16-pound bobsled ultimately came flying out of the end of the track. And it came into the spot where all 5 of us were waiting. And when I jumped up to my feet to see this oncoming bobsled, I was in the back of my teammates. So my 4 teammates were all in front of me trying to get out of the way of this bobsled. And luckily, one by one, they were able to jump out, but I didn't have any space to move. And so right when I went to take a step to jump out of the way, it hit me from behind, and I sustained a compound fracture in my right leg. So basically my bones came out of my leg, and I missed out on the 2006 games. So man, that was devastating,
Right.
I just remember, if I could share one thing about this, the lesson that I learned from it is that, here we are in a pandemic. Here we are. I don't think there's one person in this world that has been unscathed from this pandemic, that has not had their lives changed in some way or another. And some have been drastically changed, as we all know, whether it's loss of jobs or family disruption or loss of, personal property, whatever it might be, mentally, depression, anxiety, all these things have just been, kind of an accumulation of 2020. And if there's one thing I could share from this story is that we always have a choice to make. I was ranked first in the world and hit by a bobsled, and not only was my leg shattered, but my dream was shattered. But I remember my doctor coming into my hospital room, and as she sat here and looked at me and she could see these tears swelling in my eyes, she just said, she was very, very, she wasn't very, very kind, but she said what she needed to say. And she just said, "Why are you crying? You have a choice to make. You either can look back and be upset and angry and frustrated at what's happened to you, or you can choose to move forward." And that right there has stuck with me for the past, it's been 15 years now. And I think about that all the time, that despite our circumstances, despite what's going on in our lives, yes, we might have things taken from us. We might have opportunities that are closed or doors that are shut in front of us, but we still have a choice to make. We still can choose how we're going to see this situation and how we're going to move forward, because that's really our only choice. I mean, we always have a choice. We can either look back and be upset and angry and stuck in that moment, or we can just choose to show gratitude for all the things around us, to look for that light and choose to be hopeful, choose to find that way to look forward to a bright future, even if your whole Olympic dream is shattered in front of you, even if, life is flipped upside down for you in, as it is in this pandemic. We still have a choice to make. We can still make someone smile. We can still, open up a conversation. We can still send a note. We can still go visit a neighbor from a 6-foot distance with our masks on, and we can still find ways to spread hope and to spread love and joy. So that would be the one message that I learned from that experience.
Noelle, that is amazing. I love the emotion that I felt when you were telling that story. I love that. I honestly believe that we do have a choice no matter what. I'm going to go back to skeleton because you had mentioned what it is. So you're basically almost face first on the ice. You have to be a little bit crazy to do that, right?
A little.
But so I just had to say that. But let's go back to what you just said, that everything is a choice. So you're sitting in the hospital, you have a fracture. your Olympic dream is shattered basically and literally, but why did you choose to not let that hold you down? What mentally and physically, why did you choose to pursue your dream of being an Olympian?
That's a great question, Shane. Why did I choose to make the choice to move forward rather than to allow it to hold me back? I can think of a couple things just right off the bat. One, just seeing my options before me. I could either, when my leg was broken, I had, staples down through my shin bone and then through my knee, just staples all over in my leg. And I had screws in the sides and stuff. And as I sat there and looked at my leg, I realized I could either just sit in this bed and this would be my life. Like I would just sit here and be so depressed and so sad. And you have to understand, here I am first in the world and competing for this US Olympic spot. And here I get hit by a bobsled. And that very next morning, as I'm sitting here in this hospital bed, my teammates go on to compete for my spot now. So they're competing now for this Olympic spot. And while, yes, we are teammates, it doesn't always mean it's the friendliest of competition. And so there were definitely some that were cheering, saying, oh, yes, it just opened up a spot. Now I get to go to the Olympics. This is awesome. I better call my parents and tell them to get some tickets,
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's kind of cutthroat at that level many, many times. And there are some great people, some great friendships built along the way, but there are definitely those that make it really tough for you to carry on when you're at your pit. They just want to keep you down. Yeah. And so I realized that, I could either okay, I know there's this quote and it's going to come to me. Hang on. It's something like, there's nothing like, when we complain, it's never going to make a situation better. And I know I'm totally butchering this, but there's nothing that makes a situation worse than complaining about it. So as long as if we're complaining about it, it's only going to make it worse. It's only going to make us feel, tighter and heavier in our lives. And so there's no point. There really is no point. But to be honest, it was my support system. I remember right when first of all, I was in a different country. It was a US team that hit me, but I was in a different country. And when I got hit, and my mom and my husband were there on a plane and by the time I woke up out of surgery, right? It was like moments after my doctor told me that I had a choice. And they came and I just had their support. But also once I came home and landed here back in Utah, I remember getting off the airplane and my sister was holding up a poster. And instead of like having these sad, gloomy faces of my loved ones and just saying, I am so sorry, this is so hard, life just stinks sometimes, and just all this depression from other people, they were like, my sister was holding up a sign and it said 10 reasons why you should break your leg before the Olympic Games. And it was just like, these funny statements. And the one thing I learned, and maybe you guys can relate to this, but when you're going through like tragic times and struggles and trials, really, you've just got to have a sense of humor. You've got to find ways to just kind of like, oh my goodness, can you believe this just happened? Okay, how can it get worse? Like, and the other thing is to show gratitude in all things. And I'll share that in just a second. But I'm just thinking about even 2020. I have made this ongoing journal entry that I still just haven't ended because it's just comical to me, of all the things that have like, what else could go wrong? It's basically like this journal entry, like what else? Like, just bring it on. Like, just bring it on. Like 3 or 4, like 3 or 4 like bad things through it. I was like, oh my word, like what is like, it's more of this like, yeah. And then like by the 5th or 6th or 7th or 9th or 20th, I was just like, oh my word. Okay, just bring it on. Like, well, this is great. This is awesome. Like, after I had been through, I was through like, I don't know, like 12, oh my goodness, what else can go wrong? My nephew, he's super cute. And he got a mission call for a religious mission to go serve in Arizona. And he's like, hey, I need someone to watch my turtle for 2 years. Can you watch him? And we're like, well, we've got a fish tank. We've got these fish, and he's like, oh yeah, he gets along really well with fish. He's been in a fish tank. So he does great. So that'd be great. And we're like, all right, awesome. So we put him in our fish tank. And also when we wake up, he ate 15 fish. He ate all of our fish. There's not one fish left in our fish tank, and we're like, we are done. We are done. Like, what else could happen? You know,
That's
and that's
awesome.
just like funny.
What a funny
you know?
story.
Like, what else, you know? So I think just having a little bit of a sense of humor where you can. Obviously, in every situation, it's really tough to find that humor. But just having that poster when my sister was holding it up, 10 reasons why you should break your leg before the Olympics. And it just made me laugh. And instead of having, it's helped me to realize that when people are going through a hard time, instead of putting on a sad face, I mean, yes, comfort those that stand in need and comfort. And when it's time to put your arm around them and cry with them, then that's the time to do it. But in other times, sometimes what we need to do is just put on that smile and find the light and the brighter side of it and help to lift their spirits rather than come to that same level. And I think that for me was one of the biggest, that was a saving grace for me, was just trying to stay optimistic through it. And the second thing I'd mentioned is gratitude. In my hardest times, and when all hope seems lost and the struggle, all you can see is that struggle in front of you, whether it's missing out on an Olympic Games, or I've had multiple late miscarriages, or missing an Olympic medal by 1/10 of a second in 2010, whatever that case may be. The only thing that I could, that could pull me out of this like really deep depressive state of just wanting, like just sheer wanting to feel miserable. Like, I just want to be left alone. I don't want to wake up in the morning. Like, I just want to sleep all day. Like, I get how that feels. Like, it's just not a good place to be in. And the only thing really that I can, looking back at those experiences, is just keeping gratitude lists and looking everywhere for gratitude and for how God has been in your life each and every day. Where have you seen the hand of God each and every day? Because he's there. He's never left you. He's always there. And sometimes we just need to open our eyes and be intentional about seeking him and looking for that love and that light.
I love what you have said. There's so many questions I have that come from that, but really, I agree with you. Me and Shane, we love to laugh. Laughter is, I think, something that we all need. And really, that has helped me and Shane get through some difficult times in our life. Is, you know, if you're not going to cry, you might as well laugh, right? I mean, or however that saying goes. I butchered that one, but you know, one of the things that I've loved about your story is, you know, your husband and how supportive he's been through all of this, right? And through your whole career. And so what do you have to say about your husband and his support, and what do you love about him?
How long is this show?
Yeah.
Man, truly, I couldn't have done. Yes, okay, so here's the thing. I could have done what I did, but not to the extent that I did it, or with the joy that I did it. And I don't think I would have had the success. I know I wouldn't have had the success that I had without him. You know, people say, oh, I did this by myself. Well, I think it can take you only so far. And then he has filled in all the rest. So his love, his support, his drive, his awareness of saying, hey, you know, if we're talking sport specific, just even knowing and recognizing when he had a chance to step in and try and develop his skills was at the 2010 World Championships. I showed up at the competition. Well, it was 2009 World Championships. I showed up at this World Championship competition, and my sled was damaged. And you can't compete if you have a damaged sled. So I had to borrow someone's sled, and that was just kind of it's not great because they're all custom built for you. And I remember even while I was still in New York, he called me up and he said, you know what? I'm going to build you a sled. I want to design a sled and build one for you for the Olympics next year. And people don't do that. Like, like you don't just like build a sled. I mean, it's just really, you don't. There's 2 people in the US that build skeleton sleds, and that's what they do, like, as their profession.
Yeah.
And so when he came up with this, at first, the first thing I said was, okay, you try it first, you know, like,
yeah.
Like, I probably didn't show a lot of faith in him. But then I saw, like, day after day, he would read through the specification book, the spec book, and 1,000-page book. Like, it was so big. And he was just reading detail after detail about how the sled needed to be, the thicknesses of the steel, the intricacies, what is allowed, and maybe where there was some room for innovation. And he ended up designing my sled using, that's what he did that's what he used to do for a profession, was 3D design on the computer. So it did go hand in hand. He was in a steel fabrication shop. And so he designed, and he and his brother-in-law helped to design and build this sled for me. And it was absolutely incredible. But even more than just that hands-on, like building this sled for me, he really is my rock. Like I don't know how many spouses, especially like, and I can say this because it's hard to not be on this like feminine and whatever side. Like I'm all about equality, but at the same time, it'd be hard to be a man and to sit there and to take care of the kids while your wife is off succeeding and you're in the background. And it's hard for a woman to see that, even I'm not trying to take sides here. That's not what this is about. But I think for him, it was just this time in our lives when he was pushing the stroller, changing diapers, and I would just go train and I would go compete and do my thing. And he'd say, don't worry about it, Noelle. I've got this. I'm taking care of it. I've got dinner planned. You go do your thing. I know you're so good at what you're doing. Just get out there and go nail it. Like he was so supportive in every way. And I say babies because they were little at that time. They're grown up a little bit now. But they would be crying. We traveled the world with two of our young kids. Our two oldest kids were little at that time when I went to the 2014 games. And I remember they would be crying and screaming on the sidelines. And I would just sit there, but I could rest assured that they were being taken care of. And that, and then I'd see Janson, my husband, he'd have a smile and he'd be like clapping his hands. And one of the kids would be crying and he's like, give me a thumbs up. Like, it's all good. I'm good here. You go be good there. And it was just this, it was never, that's something that has been so wonderful about our marriage is maybe in the beginning. So I joke, we've been married 18 years now and 15 have been great. I am not going to lie. This is all open book. But those first 3 years were really rough and just a lot of learning and figuring out who we were and how we could be compatible together. I got married, I was 19 and he was 21. We were young and there were definitely days when we're like, I don't know, like what's going to happen. And since that point, it's just been amazing. In the beginning, it was more of a, I'll do that if you do this. Okay, you do that. And then I'll do this. Like it was much of a give, take, give, take. And then it built into this like give, I want the best for you. Oh, but now I want the best for you. But now I want the best, and we'd start building this relationship. And so he's been, Jason, you asked, what kind of role my husband has played in this, and he's everything. He really is. As I crossed that line in 2014, I just wanted to be with him and my kids and my family and just shout, we did it. It really was us. It was a team effort,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So you've shared with us some struggles that you've gone through with breaking your leg and possibly thinking you might never have a shot at winning. So I want to go to the point where you not only won a silver medal, but share with us how you felt standing on the podium when you're there, you got your silver medal. How did you feel at that moment?
Oh my word. I have never felt something like that before. It was like beams were shooting from my fingertips to my toes and my heart was racing. And I'm like, and it was like, I think I want to cry, but then I'd start kind of laughing and then it'd be giggly. And then I'd start like cheering and jumping up and down and like throwing my hands in the air and then tears are coming down. And I'm like, this isn't sad. So then I'd start like smiling really big. And it was really just like a rush of every emotion that it took to be there. I mean, you think about an Olympic journey, and you think about, okay, so it's once every 4 years. Well, I missed out on those first 4 years by getting hit by the bobsled. The second 4 years, I finished 4th in the Olympics, which is the worst ever position to finish in the Olympic Games. It's horrible. It's not second place, people. It is not second place. It is 4th. So I missed Olympics in 2010 and then went on to compete in 2014. And it's just this, as I stood on that podium, honestly, it was just this rush of emotions from the journey. And I love the quote that and this kind of takes a little sidestep from where we're talking, but throughout the last 2 seasons of my career, my coach had this mantra, this quote that he would always share with us. And it was such a good quote, but he said, we need to be process oriented and results driven. And what he meant by that is just focus on the moment that we're in. Think about where you want to go, but then let it go. Like, just let it be there. Like, don't think about being on that podium. Just focus on what it takes to get there. And so I was so focused every single day on what I needed to do right now in this moment in order to be just a tiny bit better than I was yesterday or the moment before. Like, I was so focused on being in the moment that once that podium came, because I hadn't focused on it, it was so surreal. Like, because I'd focused on how to get there. I'd focused on the little habits within my everyday living. Just what can I do to be a little bit better today? You know, I love the quote, by small and simple things are great things brought to pass. And that 100% is like the mantra of an Olympian, or, you know, and within our daily lives. And as a parent, like as a mom, as a dad, if we could just do small little things every day, like maybe we don't have time to read our kid a whole book at night because we're just exhausted and you're like, oh man, but can you say, okay, I'm going to read this left page and I'm stopping, even if it's in the middle of the sentence, and you can kind of make a game of it and just say, I can read one page to you tonight. Whatever it is, if we could just be like 1% better today than we were yesterday, we're making great changes. And over time, that compounds, we're going to see huge results, just like standing on that Olympic podium. It didn't happen just in this big like rush of, wow, you know, like one day I wasn't, and then one day I was. It was just being a tiny bit better each and every day. And then also when it happened, it was very surreal because I wasn't focused on it, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. That is great. And I want to kind of go back to humor a little bit, because we love to laugh. So what's a funny story that's happened in your life that you'd like to share with us that comes to your mind?
Oh my goodness, that is very, very broad. You didn't
just one.
Okay, let's see. Because now I'm like thinking, well, probably the funniest stories, to be honest, are being a parent, or being a mom. And it's like daily. It really is daily, and it's not always me involved. It's us just stopping and staring at one of the kids and just like looking at each other and just being like, oh my gosh, do you see what they're doing? Oh my word. And just like laughing at their statements and their little things they do. Like, you know, as parents, we like to, well, you know, maybe you think like I parent really well or whatever, but I remember there's times when, like, I remember when Lacee, so she's our oldest. Oh, she'd probably get really mad at me for sharing this, but I think it's funny. She'd be okay. Maybe she would. But anyway, when she was like, she's 12 now. But when she was like 3, I remember she had this little blanket that she was like, you know, she'd carry around with her, and everywhere she went, this little blanket has little tassels. Grandma made it for her, and it's one of those fleece ones that you tie the little knots on the end. So it has all these little tassel-y things. And she would carry it with her everywhere. And I remember coming down into the kitchen one day and seeing a trail of water, like in the kitchen in Eagle. I used to live in Eagle Mountain. And I remember seeing this trail of water coming down into the kitchen and just thinking, where did this water come from? Like, where the heck did this water come from? So all of a sudden I'm like, I come down and I see that it's coming from it was from Lacee. So Lacee's standing there and her blanket is like soaking wet, right? So she has this blanket and she's just sucking on this soaking wet blanket. And I'm thinking, where did she get this water? She's like 3 years old or something. So also I'm like, we're following this trail of water back to its origin, wherever it started. And all of a sudden it leads me into the bathroom, and all the water is gone out of the toilet. And she's just sitting there sucking all this toilet water from her blanket. And I was just like, oh my word, like, oh goodness, like, what do you do? Do you call poison control?
Yeah.
What do you do? Like, I don't know. Was there, was it flushed before, or was it just like empty? I don't know what to do. And I think it's one of those times as a parent, you just like throw your hands in the air. And I'm digging there. That's like years ago, but this happens like frequently, like just random stuff like this. And well, you know what? If they make it through today, I'm doing a great job. Like, I am doing really good today,
That's awesome.
Lots of funny stories.
Yeah. So you are very busy now after your career's over. I can't remember if you've launched or you're launching something new. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we just launched. I'm so excited. So I have done like speaking for the past 15 years. I've been on stages all over the world and spoken to thousands of people, and it's a lot of fun. But I never know like the impact that I make. So I get off the stage and I'm just like thinking, I really hope that someone can be a little bit better today because of what I just said, or I hope that it's not just like, okay, that was good, and you go home and you're the same person. And so it's been on my mind for years and years that I want to do something to help people really, truly transform, like really find their potential, really live on purpose and live an intentional life. And so over the past few years, I've been writing, like just, I love to write. I really enjoy it. And the pandemic, you might say, oh man, this has been the worst year ever. But for me, looking back, like I said, we have a choice to make. And yes, there have been crappy moments. And yes, there's a lot that I could read my whole list of things. Like I need an implant this week. Like like I thought it was a cavity, and they're like, oh, by the way, no, that's actually a $4,000 implant. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna chalk it up to 2020. But I've spent a lot of time over the pandemic, over COVID, taking into account everything that has gone into making me successful as an Olympian, and what has gone into CEOs becoming successful and other Olympians. And what I did is I kind of did this huge mind mapping board of saying, what are all the things that make us great, that can help us to shift from being just a good average person to becoming exceptional and living our lives by design and the life that we've always wanted to live. And so I sat there and I wrote out all these things, like we need like clarity, we need purpose, we need vision, we need a good mindset, we need good habits and discipline, and we need to have time to reflect. And I took all these things and narrowed it down into 12 principles. And what I've done is I've created a course on how to live on purpose. And I've taken these 12 principles. It's a 12-week course that people can take. And it starts with mindset and leads all the way up to success. And really that definition is up to you what that looks like. But it helps transform people's lives into becoming the best person that they can become, and living a life of intention each and every day. So I'm super excited about it, to help people to just reach their potential and live on purpose daily.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how do they get in touch with this, or how do they become a part of it? We'd love to,
awesome.
If somebody would like to, have that be a part of their life and are looking for transformation, how do they get in touch with you? Or
you guys are awesome. It's just I have a website. Yeah, I have a website, noellepikuspaced.com, and that's where you can go to find all that information and check it out. And I'm just, excited. It starts with it, and you walk away with a defined purpose for yourself. I created one, and it's actually on my phone, so that every day when I open my phone, I know what my purpose is, like my lifelong purpose. I truly believe that if you want to be guided in your daily decisions, you need to know where you want to end up in your final days. You need to know the direction that you want to go, so that you have that purpose and vision each and every day. So when somebody cuts you off, you're like, oh, but it's okay. It's all right. Like when they're cutting you off on and driving or something, I'm like, it's okay. My purpose is to, like, I have a defined purpose. Do you want me? I'm going to share it.
Sure.
Really
yeah,
quick.
Please.
The purpose of my life is to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and cherish my loved ones, to pursue lifelong learning and growth, and to strengthen and share my gifts so that I might inspire others to live more fully, love more openly, and make a greater difference today. So that's each awesome. And every day that I see that purpose, I know who I am and I know what I stand for. And that's what I want to help people to define within this course, is their own purpose statement, their own mission, their own relationships around them. Be aware of what kind of relations are around you, so that you can bring in those top 5 individuals that you really want closest to you, because truly we are the average of the top 5 people we spend, this is research driven, but that we spend our time with. So do we really recognize who those 5 people are? And one of my favorite things that I do in this course as well, it's an e-course. I should have mentioned it's an e-course, but there are about 90 videos that I've created and over 50 printable resources and tools that are just, I'm super excited about. And one of those is how to overcome your fear of failure. Overcoming fear and anxiety and stress, and being able to tackle it head on, just like an Olympian, like how we do it within the
skeleton,
Olympics,
right?
So I'm super excited. There's so many fun tips and tricks, a page for gratitude, attitude of gratitude. There's just a lot of fun things, a mindset assessment to see where you fall, whether it's in a growth mindset or a fixed mindset or somewhere in between there, and how you can move forward, and gives you some actionable tools every single day and every single week. So I'm really excited about it. Check it out. It's on noellepikuspaced.com. Thanks for letting me throw that out there. You guys are awesome.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's great. We wish you all the best with that. So
Thanks.
Jason and I have come up with something that we call the double down dose.
Ooh.
So these are the last two questions that we're going to ask you, and we love asking these questions. So the first question for you, Noelle, is how would you define hope?
Ooh, how would I define hope? Hope is the evidence of things not seen. I define hope in my own terms. I mean, if I really am thinking of it on a personal level, to be honest, it's interesting that you asked that question, because I used to think that faith and hope were they're very connected, but I used to kind of see them as the same thing. But then through experiences, to be honest, through failures, through losses, I now see hope differently. And I see hope. I think the best way that I could share this with you is that when I was younger, see, I'm making this longer than it needs to be. But when I was younger, my mom always used to say, hope for the best and expect the worst. And so I lived by that. Like growing up was just hope for the best, but just expect that bad things will come. Expect that the worst is about to happen. And it really, all that did for me was it put up a wall. And it put up this like, this, I don't know how to explain it, but it made me feel like I had to do it on my own. Like I couldn't depend on other people. I couldn't ask for help. And to be honest, yes, I'm not quite sure if this is a super religious show, but I am a very religious person. And for me,
we love it.
It cut off my dependence on the atonement of Jesus Christ. Like it made me feel like I had to do it all on my own, when I felt like I had to hope for the best and expect the worst, because then when the worst came, all I had to do was throw my hands in the air and say, see, I knew the worst would come. I've got this. Like, I don't need anybody's help. And there came a time this was actually after my second late miscarriage, when I realized that I still felt lonely, I still felt hopeless, and I still felt miserable by wanting to put it all on myself, by hoping for the best and expecting the worst. I wasn't protecting anybody, and especially not myself. And so going into my third late miscarriage, I hoped for the best and expected the best. And that was really when I came to understand more so what hope is and is in my life, is that it's this pure realization, this pure belief, this true intentional belief that things are going to be okay, that life is going to be great, that there's a bright future ahead, and a reason to celebrate. And as I went into this third late miscarriage, not knowing that this was not going to be a successful birth, as I went into this hoping for the best and expecting the best and looking for a bright future, what happened when I lost that little baby was amazing, because I felt peace and I felt that hope continue on, and that light and that love that lifted me way past ever hoping for the best and expecting the worst. But that hope, I allowed that hope to truly fill my heart, and it allowed me to see the future as a bright and happy and hopeful one. So I'm not sure that completely answered it, but I know what hope is to me in my life, and it's seeing a bright future ahead despite our circumstances.
Yeah, for me, it absolutely answered it by the emotion that you're feeling.
Oh, I'm getting teary-eyed. You guys can't see it, but I'm getting teary-eyed.
I can see it.
You know what? That's really the beautiful thing, right? Like, when we show emotion, that shows, that we're connected, right? We're not disconnected from the world and people around us and even ourselves, right? We have that self-care and self-love, and we love others. And so that's what, when you talk and bring out that emotion, that's what I think of is that you just shows your connection to everything around you. So I appreciate the emotion.
Oh, thanks, Jason.
Our second question, we love asking these two questions, by the way. It really, gets to your heartstrings, and as well as, bringing out the realness. And so the second question is what is your definition of love?
Oh, wow. My definition of love. Wow. Well, I can think of what charity is, and I think that's what love is just the pure love of all people, despite not despite differences, but with gratitude for differences. with really appreciating diversity. And that could come in any form, whether it's that you drive a different car, you wear different clothes, you talk differently, you look differently. Diversity comes in all shapes and sizes, and that we love people and ourselves. I think a lot of people struggle with loving themselves, which makes it really difficult to love others. Especially as women, I know that that's a really tough thing to do, is to purely love yourself for who you are and what you are, and appreciate who, you know, the talents and skills that you have. But I think it's just purely loving all those around you, whether they are nice to you, whether they're not nice to you, and whether they look different, but to truly find ways. So here comes another story. Great. I told you I had full of stories, but
I love it.
going into the 2000 as a competitor. So as an Olympic competitor, it is really, you're competing, right? You're competing against everybody. So you really, as a rookie, when I was first starting out competing, I wanted to beat everybody. Like, I just wanted to beat everybody no matter what. And I really literally, like, as a young athlete, I would pray that I hopefully, like, my best will be better than their best, or maybe they could trip and fall. You know, I'm not gonna, yes, I said that out loud. Yes, there are those thoughts. But as I matured and I realized that we are all God's children, that he loves us all equally, and he wants the best for all of us, and sometimes that might be hard to believe, but he wants the best for all of us. So I realized that my prayers started changing for please help all of the athletes to do their best. Please help us all to do our best. And then I would also say, please help me to bless me for my efforts and my faith, but help me to find peace. If I crash, if I take last, if I take first, I was no longer praying to beat everybody, but it was really just to do my best. And it's not always easy to appreciate your competitors, because some of them can be very mean, like not nice, like literally, like outspokenly not nice to individuals. And I remember having to pray to Heavenly Father to say, I might not. So, and there's this quote from a speaker, I wish I could remember who said it, but a recent talk that I listened to. And this woman said, I may not like her, but Heavenly Father, please help me to love her.
Yeah.
And I think that is the definition of love. We might not like somebody, but please help us to just show love, respect, kindness, goodness to all people everywhere. And to me, that's the definition of love, is seeking actively for, to see people through God's eyes, and to love them unconditionally.
Amen.
That's awesome. I have thoroughly enjoyed our discussion today. We sincerely appreciate your time, Noelle, and your insight has been amazing. We wish you all the best with your upcoming course. And thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Shane. Thanks, Jason. You guys are awesome. Keep spreading the light, spreading goodness. You guys are great.
Yeah, we love it. And we'll continue to do that. And we hope the best for you, and hope to have you on again at some point.
I'd love that
in the future, but really appreciate it for your time and all of your words. It's been amazing conversation. So thank you so much, Noelle, and best of luck with everything.
Awesome. Thanks to you as well. Thanks, guys.